Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammi and Nathan Jaeger.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're starting off a little mini-series that we're doing about the Fueled Up Life methodology, our 8-tank method.
We shared this on an episode recently of the Date Forever podcast where we shared about these 8 different fuel tanks, and we got some really wonderful feedback about wanting to learn more about these different tanks, how they came about, and what Nathan and I are doing. So thank you to everybody who reached out to us on socials and via email, which we love hearing from you. So if something we say or something that a guest shares on the show ever resonates, please share it. We love hearing from you, whether or not that's on Insta at Date Forever, or you can hit both of us up on email, sammi@fuelcollective.com.au or nathan@fuelcollective.com.au. We love hearing from you.
So what I would highly recommend is to go back and take a listen to that episode. It's 3 episodes ago and it's called How We Are Keeping Our Fuel Tanks Full for a Better Relationship. So go back and take a listen to that. But we're going to do a little bit of a recap here anyway of the 8 tanks and then do a deep dive into the first tank, which is the self tank.
So there are 8 of them. So the first one is your relationship with yourself, your self tank.
So number 2 is your romantic relationship.
Number 3 is your relationships and network.
Number 4 is humming household.
Number 5 is career and business.
Number 6 is wealth and lifestyle.
Number 7, the world.
And the last one, number 8, is the future.
So if you haven't listened to the other episode, the basic premise is that we believe there are these 8 different fuel tanks that make up your life and your experience. And at any given moment in time, these individual fuel tanks are somewhere between empty and full. Sometimes they can run at half or less for a really long time, and sometimes they can be running at full for a really long time. But if we're not careful and a lot of these start to dip in that, fuel light on sort of stage, life can get really heavy and hard and uncomfortable. So the whole methodology is around creating a framework to check in with the different areas of your life at a snapshot so that you can diagnose what's working and what's not with ease, and then figure out what fuel do I need to add and to what tank. But today we are going to do a deep dive into tank number 1, self. And that tank is all about your relationship with yourself, setting the tone for every other relationship that you have. If you've listened to more than one episode of Date Forever, you would have heard us talk about this idea about dating yourself and your chosen person for forever. But it really does start with you dating yourself.
So when we talk about dating ourselves forever, there's kind of 2 key fundamentals that make that up. So the first one is really knowing yourself, and that's really deep, intimate knowledge about what you like doing, who you are, knowing your feelings, and knowing how to interpret what's going on in your life.
And who you want to become.
Yeah, what areas you need to grow in. And the second area is then treating yourself with love and kindness.
So Nathan and I are going to share a little bit more about this self tank and what are the kind of core parts that make up this tank, and then how we keep our own individual tanks fueled up. So Nath has his and I have mine, and his is his responsibility and mine is my responsibility. I can't outsource my relationship with myself to Nath, and he can't outsource his to me.
And this is one of only 2 of these tanks that is like this, that we can't outsource to anyone else, that we have to take full responsibility of ourselves. So it's one of those special occurrences.
So if you ever want to take a quick diagnostic on your 8 fuel tanks, we encourage you to go and take the quiz. It probably take you maybe 6 or 7 minutes, and it'll give you a really good look into where things are at. So you can find it on our website, fuelcollective.com.au fueled up quiz. So in that quiz, there are a handful of questions for each tank, and we're going to take a look at the questions that connect with the self tank in this episode. So the first one is a really good measure of being a dynamic and interesting person. And it is, we each have our own interests and time to pursue and engage in them. So Nath, tell me a little bit about this for you.
So I have lots of interests.
So many hobbies.
Yeah, and maybe not a lot of time to spend on them. No, that's probably not the right thing to say, but I do sometimes struggle with prioritizing the spare time that I do have to pursue my hobbies and engage in those.
What are they though?
So I really love lots of things, but I really love cycling and mountain biking in particular. I also play the guitar. I love being out on the water as well. I really enjoy the ocean or the river or being in any body of water. And I love a bit of computer gaming as well.
You've listed like only a handful. I've like, oh, you also love photography, and we have a cupboard full of SLR, GoPros, drones, all the toys. Yeah. You love brewing your own home brew and beer and cider.
Yeah.
You love pulling things apart and putting them back together, particularly coffee machines. You're a bit of a coffee nerd. Like, yeah. There's so many more hobbies.
There is. There's lots. There's so many I can't even find time to list them all.
So for you, you have a lot of interests, but your struggle comes from finding or making time for them?
Yeah, that's it. I play football as well. The list goes on.
And rock climbing. Yeah. There's a whole bag of rock climbing stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So I think the struggle for me is I'm not great with my calendar. And so unless I really prioritize some time and dedicate it and lock it into the calendar, I often don't manage my time well. And so it gets to the last minute and I'm not then able to prioritize doing the things that I really love doing. So one of the things that I'm really working on at the moment is to better manage my calendar and book in things in advance when I know that I'm going to have some spare time. And the other thing that I'm trying to do as well is that when I do find myself with some spare time, is just to dive in and do something. I so often sit around and
fall onto your default Netflix behaviors.
Yeah, definitely. And so I'm really working on just making the decision, even if it's not doing something perfectly or for as long as I wanted to do it, I'm really prioritizing just trying to get out there and do it. Even if it's a half-hour ride rather than going out for 2 hours, I'm just going to do it anyway.
So what's your number one tip or lesson that you've learned around having interests and making time to engage in them?
So I think my number one tip is around that time management side of things. So the hobbies that I do engage with most often, it's because I have planned and scheduled time to do those hobbies. And it's often with someone else so that I'm held accountable to actually doing it at that time. So as an example, going to footy training, like it is a set time with set people. I'm going to be held accountable. Or when I was rock climbing consistently as well, it was with other people and there was a dedicated time to do that. Whereas when I'm not held accountable by somebody else, I often struggle to prioritize that time for my interests.
Yeah, you thrive with a bit of structure around your interests, don't you?
I do, yeah. So what about you, Sammi? What are some of your interests and hobbies?
I feel like I'm a bit more fleeting than you. Like I have hobbies or interests for like shorter periods of time. Like I don't think there's anything that I've like always done. You know, like in the last year or in the last couple of years, like I've learned to surf.
That's been up and down though too.
I blame that on winter.
Yeah.
I've taken a couple months break on winter, but I'm itching to get back out there. But I definitely, this is not something that is super natural to me. And probably about 5 years ago, I was working in an environment that was like super high performance, super high productivity. And I let a lot of my like hobbies and interests go. Like I used to really love baking cakes and creating things digitally, like whether or not that was like just artwork or invitations or stationery or things like that. And I let a lot of those things go because they weren't productive. Like, oh, I can just buy a cake and it's way cheaper, way easier, doesn't take the time. And I fell out of love with a lot of things. And for a while there, this element really, really struggled. And I didn't actually know what it was that I liked to do with my own time. Like if I'd been given the grace of a whole day to do whatever I wanted, I would have really struggled to do something that was meaningful or filled me with joy. Whereas I've managed to repair a lot of that mindset, and now I really can enjoy doing things for the joy of doing things. Like, as an example, I've just done a 4-week ceramics class, and that was purely just I really wanted to do something that was creative and created an outlet, try something new, and also just screen free. Like, I found a lot of my hobbies in the past have still been very like device centric. But I'm also like training for a triathlon at the moment. I've never done that before. So learning like 3 different sports, running, swimming and cycling all at once. And I think for me, exercise has often been a hobby that I like dip in and out of. Like, I really, really loved pole dancing for quite a number of years until I got an injury, and then I fell out of love with it. But I would love to go back now that that injury's kind of recovered. One of the lessons that I've learned around this that I wish I could share with everybody is that this downtime powers your uptime. Like, and I don't think I always had that attitude. I think sometimes I thought those kinds of things were like really distractions or indulgences. I think this is in conflict with like one of my highest needs or desires is like growth. I love growth. I love learning. So, a lot of my hobbies and interests and stuff in the past have been very centric around doing a course or learning something new, or attending a night class for a project management thing, or a lot of personal and professional development type things were my interests. But I've definitely learned that I need a bit more balance. I need
some of that creative outlet as well as the growth.
Yeah. But yeah, my downtime and my creative time really does power my uptime. All right, so we kind of talked about this already, but another really big part of this self-tank is being fit and healthy and having really good routines around your well-being, whether or not that's mental, physical, mind, body, spirit. How do you do this, Nath?
So I've tried a few things in the past. I've tried having a gym membership. I've tried just solo doing my own exercise and things like that. I've tried organised sports, and I've tried different times of day as well. I've tried, morning, evening, during the middle of the day, all sorts of things. But the thing that I find works best for me is kind of that organised sport or having a real concrete goal to be working towards. So what I found is that when I've had a gym membership, I don't enjoy the gym in the first instance. So it was always a struggle for me to actually go to the gym, and unless I was working out with my beautiful wife.
Yeah, you're a bit of a lost puppy in the gym, aren't you? You're a bit like, what should I do? I don't know. Maybe I'll just go home.
Yeah, and so I end up doing the same thing over and over again, or I just get bored and go home. So the gym definitely wasn't the place for me unless I was there with someone else. So the one time that the gym did work for me was when I had a gym on site at work, and I was going with a bunch of my workmates every day of the week. So then it did really work because I think it was that more social aspect of it. There was also some really good variety in the workouts that were organised for us as well in that gym. So that's what worked really well for me. Or the other thing, like I mentioned, was around actually having a goal to be working towards. So when I did enjoy going to the gym, it was because I was working towards going on a big 10-day hike, going and hiking the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea. And at the moment, I've set myself a goal to do a 80k bike race. So that's really motivating me to get out and set that really good routine around my exercise and health and well-being.
So you talked a lot about like the body, moving your body. What about for your mind? What do you do for that element of well-being?
So for my mind,
I should preface this with like, you are one of the most chill motherfuckers.
I was going to say exactly the same thing.
It's so annoying. You're like in a constant state of Zen meditation.
Yeah. So I guess one of the things that I do though is I always have a little bit of decompression time when I finish my workday. I'm one of those people that likes to have a bit more of a structured kind of work day where I'll do my 8 till 4 and then have a little bit of downtime between doing whatever we're planning to do for the evening. I know, especially over the last 2 years, like working routines and stuff like that have changed for a lot of people. And I know that people like to work when it suits them. But yeah, I do just find that having that kind of structured routine, having that half hour or an hour of downtime after work to kind of change gears and relax and kind of decompress. And then I'm all there for the evening. So what about you, Sammi? What are you doing for your body and mind?
So my mind needs my body to move. I'm so much happier when I'm exercising regularly, consistently. When we entered the global pandemic, if you had told me that you were going to take my gym membership away, I would have spit the dummy. Like, it was very much part of my routine. And then over the last 2 years, my whole routine with exercise has changed dramatically. Yeah. And I still really love lifting heavy things. I find that makes me feel so strong and empowered. And I like the way that it makes my body feel both in that moment and after training and all of those kind of things. But now my relationship with exercise is so much more varied. Like at the moment, as I've mentioned, training for a triathlon. So doing far more cardio than I've ever done or sought to do before. But also we made a really big move to the beach, almost a year ago. And that has, again, really impacted my lifestyle. But I walk my dog every day, sometimes twice a day. And I think that's one big thing that I do for both my body and mind. Also, about 500 days ago or 400 and something days ago, I set an intention to close my Apple rings every single day. So that's a move goal, an exercise goal, and a stand goal. And the streak is still going. I set my mind to it. And the initial goal was I want to do a year. I want to do 365 days every day, hitting that. And if I missed one, go back to 0. And I didn't miss one. So I think that definitely helps, but I dip in and out of meditation. Sometimes I do things on my own in terms of just creating an environment. Other times I like to do a guided meditation. My favorite app is Headspace. Big fan, been a member for many, many years. And that's something that sometimes I know that I really need. Yeah. And then the other thing is that I read a lot. And I think that's really good for my mind as well, because it's forever expanding and thinking and new ideas. And I like to read things that challenge me and my point of view. One of my biggest learnings around this is I'm so opposite to Nath with his 8 to 4. I'm ugh, make it stop. I have so much freedom and flexibility and there's a few things in my weeks that are stable week to week, but for the most part, I'm very agile and I lean into my energy. Sometimes I'm up on working really early, finish early. Other times I start late, finish late, and I'm so okay with that. But I think my biggest lesson around this is I've heard people talk about their struggles with their relationship with exercise and they hate it and it's a punishment. It's something that they don't want to do or they think that they should do or any of those kind of things. I think one of the best lessons that I've learned around my relationship with my body, my relationship with exercise is to find something that you truly enjoy doing. I just don't believe it's possible for you to hate every single form of exercise that ever existed. No, there will be something, whether or not it's team sport or individual sport. Go look at some Olympics and find some weird sports that you've never tried before and go and try them.
One of the funny things for me is that I hate running. I really don't enjoy it, but put a ball out on a field and I'll run after it.
You're a weirdo. Whereas I'll run after the time. Give me the numbers. Yeah, so if this is something that you struggle with, that would be my biggest piece of advice. I've tried so many things rowing and pole dancing and normal dance and
dragon boat racing.
Yeah.
All sorts.
Triathlon, long distance running, short distance running, tennis, basketball, netball, so many things, and then gym and classes and spin and
yoga and Pilates and
yeah, I really have tried so many different things and that's what I encourage people to do. You've got this one body for your lifetime and it is a very big part of your relationship with yourself. So for me, it was really about finding what I really truly enjoy doing.
So the next element is about having individual dreams and goals and plans in place to achieve them. So at the beginning of every year, we do an annual game plan process. And so part of that is to revisit our vision for our year. So that's not just Sammi and myself as a couple, but also as individuals. And as part of that process, we brainstorm some goals for the year. So we have this really nice routine around setting intention for the next 12 months. But then we also break that down into quarters to actually build out those plans to make sure that we do succeed in achieving those goals. So when I'm brainstorming these ideas, where I really start is at my lifetime goals. Like, what are the things that I really want to do in my lifetime? Like, what are the things that would really fuel me up? So it's like, what festivals do I want to go to? What things do I want to achieve in my career? What things do I want to achieve with my body? Yeah, it's really starting at that big picture view and then breaking that down to what do I want to do in the next 12 months?
Well, Nath, what are some of your goals and dreams? What are some of the things that you're working towards at the moment?
So some of the goals I've set for this year, so one of them was to complete a bike race. So I completed a race a few years ago and I really loved it. And so I was really keen to do that again. I was also really wanting to increase my habit of reading books. It's something that I've dabbled in or dipped in and out of, but I really wanted to set up like a key practice around reading books. So I've set myself a goal of reading 12 books by the end of the year, so one a month. And then the final goal that I set for myself, it just happens that Sammy's doing the same goal as well, is to swim in the ocean every week of the year. So Sammi, what are some of your goals?
I'm big on goal setting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the process. One of the things that I've learned about myself, and I think this is pretty true for most humans, is that we really thrive when you can see a sense of progress. And I think that's why we get stuck in tasks like inbox zero, because you can see the progress of emptying out the inbox. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's overly meaningful, but you can see progress.
Yeah.
I think that's like why people get so hung up on like weight loss and numbers, like, because you can measure progress. But I really big time goal setter, have been for many, many years. And it's scary. It is a scary process because you go inwards and you think about the desires or hopes or dreams that you have for yourself and what you might like to accomplish. And then you say them out loud to someone or even out loud to yourself. And then going, okay, well, yep, I do want to do that. And then you transition from that dream to actually setting a goal. And then from that goal, making a plan. And then from that plan into like executing. So I have no trouble with a very long list of individual dreams and goals. But one of the biggest ones, I think, was my goal that I set to visit 30 countries by my 30th birthday. I didn't quite make it by my 30th birthday, but I did it in my 30th year. You know, I set that goal probably in my early to mid 20s. It was like quite an extensive long range goal.
And you were still a way off when you did set it.
Oh, yeah, it was a long way. And much like any other goal, like it required me to prioritize and say no to other things and get really laser focused on why I wanted to do that and how I was going to do it and organize my time, money, energy, resources around achieving it. But I have so many things in my life that I really want to do. You know, I really want to write a book. I'd love to run a Disney marathon. I want to go to Carnival festival. I'd love to go to Burning Man. So many of these really big kind of things. I'd like to live in New York City for a little minute. I want to learn how to speak fluent Spanish. I would love to learn how to kite surf. Like, again, like Nath was saying, water sports, big on it. I'd love to learn to kite surf. And then there's like one-off things. Like, I would really love to bungee jump. I'm a bit on the fence about the aeroplane jump, but maybe that's a one-time thing. Yeah, I'd really, really, really love to go to the opening ceremony of an Olympic Games in my lifetime. So I've got lots of things that are uniquely mine, and I'm sure nobody else on earth has my combination of goals or desires. But for me, Nath already mentioned it, we have an annual game planning process that we do in November every year, and our year starts with the season. So we start with summer. So the 1st of December is our like new year, new goal setting year. And the habits around having those very intentional period of time to stop, prop, reflect on the year that was and the year that will be. And that's not to say that I hit my goals every year. Like, I think the last 2 or 3 years I've like been quite a way off, but I've definitely done and achieved more than if I had never set them in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. I think that is the key thing. It's setting the intention gets you so much closer than if you hadn't even thought about it or haven't set the intention in the first place.
Yeah. So if there's something that I can encourage around developing this relationship with yourself, if you don't have goals or dreams, don't kid yourself. You do. You've just never stopped, reflected, and written them down. We all have desires. We all have things that we fantasize about, you know. I think it's Rachel Rodgers who says, like, use jealousy as the thing to get curious about. Like, if you're jealous, it's because they have something or experiencing something that you really want. And what is that? One of the best things that I can encourage about deepening your connection with yourself and what it is that you want out of this life is with the wonderful Keith Abraham's 100 Lifetime Goals exercise. He has 25 questions that will guide you to getting to that 100 list. And once you start talking about it, it's really fun. It's really, really fun to think about the life that you're going to create for yourself, or if you're lucky enough with a person that loves you. And if you want to go way back and hear Baby Podcast Nath and Baby Podcast Sammi, Keith Abraham was guest number 1 on the Day Forever podcast. But please don't judge us for that quality that the show was then, because we've grown a lot since then.
Oh, we sure have.
Maybe that's just a sign that it's time to have Keith back.
Maybe it is. So the next aspect of this self-tank is that real deep, intimate knowledge of yourself. So what are your individual strengths? What are your values? What are your beliefs? What drives you to succeed? Really understanding deeply what that all means to you. So Sammi, how have you gone about deepening your knowledge with yourself?
Yeah, I think I really started getting curious about my own like personal development journey. It was early 20s. Wow, that means I've been doing this for like 10 years. But I think it probably started the same way that it starts for a lot of people, in getting curious about like personality profiling tools like Myers-Briggs or 16 personalities. And there are so many wonderful tools and frameworks out there to help guide really getting to know yourself. And I think the more that I've lent into those kind of tools, I always take that sort of stuff with a grain of salt. Like, maybe I was having a really optimistic day and I skewed my answers a bit. But I think they give you some guideposts to read a statement and go, does that feel true for me? And if yes, why? If no, why? And do I like that about myself? If I don't like that about myself, how would I prefer to be? How would I like to be? How could I endeavor to be? I think one of the most powerful exercises that I've done around this sort of stuff was I wrote a pretty long list of the ways that I would like to be described. If I had the perfect testimonials, or if someone was at an event and they were like, oh my gosh, Sammi Jaeger's coming later, you have to meet her, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, what would I like that to be? What would I like the things to be said about me when I'm not in the room? And how can I aspire to become that person or become more of that person now? So a lot of that has been really getting to know what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, what I value, what matters to me, what are the beliefs or self-beliefs that I have that serve me, and what are some that don't and are sitting in the deep archives of my mind that need some cobwebs cleaned out, because I'm sure there's some in there that still are not serving me. But it's been very much getting curious about all of those things. And in a lot of cases, it's been working with coaches to really hold up a mirror for me and say, hey, did you know that when you do this, this happens? Or have you ever noticed how you've got this pattern of behavior? But I think it all started with getting curious about profiling tools, books, and then coaches. What about you, Nath?
Yes, so I think mine's been very similar. So I've played around with a few of those tools, like 16 personalities.
If anyone's curious, Nate's a defender and I'm a campaigner.
Yep. So I think all of those tools have really helped me to unpack some of my strengths and weaknesses, and some of those areas where I might need a little bit of support or where it's not an innate strength of mine. And so I need to do a little bit more development in those sorts of areas. So I think one of the key takeaways that I've also had around values. And
that was big for us.
yeah. So there's a number of ways to unpack your values, but one of the exercises that I've been through is essentially just going through a list of 200 or 300 different words and identifying which keywords I have an attraction to and which ones really connect with me. And then refining that down to the top 5 or 6 values that you have. And so this exercise was really interesting because it identified some values that I have that I might not particularly like, or also ones that might not be serving me all that well, but I can see how they are showing up in my life. So this exercise was really important. And I guess one of the key things that I took out of doing that exercise as well was that we can shift our values. And because something might be a top value of mine at the moment doesn't mean that I can't shift my thinking to consciously try and value something else that would serve me a lot better.
We could do a whole episode on values.
Yeah, definitely.
And how understanding your values, my values, and the values that we share has really shaped our relationship and in turn our respective lives, but also the life that we share together.
Yeah. But I think one of the key things for us was that Sammi and I both unpacked our individual values first. Then after we'd refined down our list of individual values, we then created a values list that we share together. But really that came from that place of truly understanding ourselves first, working out what was priority for us as individuals. And from that place, we could then work out what we valued as a couple.
I know this sounds a bit woo-woo, so I'm just going to give like a concrete kind of example. But like there are people that you know who really, really value having a steady, secure, predictable paycheck. And then there's other people who don't see any value in that at all. And they would prefer to be gigging it, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of whatever. And neither of those things are wrong. It's just that one person values financial stability and predictability more than the other person. And knowing that as individuals can totally shape how you make decisions and the life that you create for yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
It should be no surprise that for both Nath and I, one of our highest values is adventure and travel. We both really, really value that more so than a lot of other things in life. Which means we make decisions that allow us to have more adventure and more travel.
That's it.
But yeah, really, I think this element of your self-tank and how you fill that up is with knowledge. It's with knowledge and learning and growth and curiosity about who you are and how you've become who you are and who you want to become.
Yeah. It's not just about the knowledge, it's about acting on the knowledge. So one of the final key elements to this self-tank is having that personal support network. So myself as an individual, having friends, having family, having people around me that support me and that I love spending time with. So me maintaining friendships with my friends is my responsibility, and that's why it falls into this self-tank.
So how do you do that? You call your mum and dad on the regular?
Yeah, I do call my mum and dad on the regular. So I set myself a goal last year to contact someone every day of the year. It might have been by a message or phone call or something, but it was an active outreach to somebody every single day of the year.
How's that going?
Not great. Yeah, it's not going great. But one of the things that I did to try and trigger me to do that was I've set up a reminder on my phone. So every day I get a reminder saying, call someone. So it's not necessarily calling them, but it's contacting a friend.
This is such an example of how we are so opposite, right? Like, I would just laugh at that to do. I'd be like, oh my God, I've already spoken to like 20 people today. But you're an introvert and you enjoy your own company, and it doesn't come naturally to you to outreach and check in on your friends or family or peers, does it?
No, it doesn't. So having that little reminder every day yeah, it just helps me to remember the importance of having friends and family and network, and my own friends and family and network, not shared friends with Sammi. And just that little reminder to outreach to them.
Good goal, babe.
Thanks.
So, Nath, as a general moment in time, this fuel tank of your relationship with yourself, as at September 2022, how full is it?
I think mine is about a 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So I think I'm just in a bit of a transition period between some things at the moment. So I haven't fully found a routine around exercise and a few things like that. So I think there's still a little bit of room to improve.
4 out of 5 is pretty good though.
Yeah. So Sammi, where do you feel like your self-tank is at the moment?
I think that one of my other tanks, my career and business tank, is taking up too much space. So I think that I don't quite have enough space for some of my hobbies and interests, and I'm definitely still like squeezing in some things. But for the most part, I think it's pretty good. I think I reckon I'm at a 4.2.
Yeah.
Especially having very consciously prioritized things like committing to my triathlon, doing my ceramics course recently. I had a little girls' weekend away a couple weeks ago. Yeah, so that I've very consciously put in fuel because I knew it was hurting. I knew it was tipping towards empty. So I think that's one of the great things about this framework is that if you can just go, okay, how is that tank at the moment? It's been low for a little while. It's time for me to start thinking about how I can add more fuel and what would really good proactive fuel look like, and not waiting for things to have a breakdown.
So that's it. That's the self-tank. So if you yourself want to go and check in on that tank, you can go and do that by taking the quiz, as we mentioned earlier. So that's fuelcollective.com.au/quiz. Or otherwise, just do a temperature check yourself.
Right now.
Think about the aspects of that tank and where do you feel like you are at the moment?
And to loop back to where we started at the beginning, like this relationship with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship that you have in your life. And how you feel about yourself can really impact how you show up for your friends, your family, your partner, your person. So I know it's easy for yourself to fall to the bottom of your to-do list or the bottom of your priorities list or somewhere down the middle to bottom, and you never really get past the top 3. So it never really becomes urgent enough to address. I just want to encourage you that you matter and your relationship with yourself matters, and it really is impacting every other area of your life. So I want to encourage you to figure out what adding fuel to this tank looks like for you and do more of it. So one of the other things that came up super high on my values list is contribution. So to say thank you for listening to this episode of Date Forever, we are making a contribution to a buy one, give one project in Vietnam called the Blue Dragon Project. And they do their very best to get as many Vietnamese children into education as possible. And if you've met me, you've probably heard me talk about my life-changing trip to Vietnam. So this country has a very big spot in my heart, along with my belief that education is one of the best investments we can make to lift up people, communities, and countries out of poverty and into thriving. So thank you so much for listening and making that possible. And if you love the idea of having your very own annual game plan day where you look at the year that was and set some intentions for the year to come, watch this space because we have something very, very exciting coming for you. If you want to be the first to know about your very own opportunity to have an annual game plan day, send me an email, sammi@fuelcollective.com.au, and I'll make sure that you are the first to know.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating. Because better relationships equal a better world.